I'm the Greek Geek because I'm 50% Greek and 100% a geek. Now, we finally have the much anticipated third season of Stranger Things. Is it as good as the previous 2 seasons? Find out in the review. We find out that those pesky Russians are trying to get into the Upside Down. Not to be confused with the Down Under where I currently am. The whole plot of this movie gets going because Joyce's magnets stop working and some meddling teenagers break into a warehouse.
And I would have made millions if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
All of the kids introduced in season 1 and 2 are growing up and they're finding different things to be interested in other than Dungeons and Dragons and nerdy stuff, such as girls and where they stand socially among their peers. We see the relationships between Eleven and Mike and Max and Lucas grow and develop. It's good to see their relationships develop and learn more about being kind of boyfriends and girlfriends and what that means and that kind of thing. The dynamic between Hopper and Joyce is always fun to watch. I like watching them try and solve things together and break into places and do things together, and their constant bickering is always very fun to see. They focus more on the love tension that they've had going in the previous 2 seasons. They give this a lot more focus, and that's interesting to see. Like in the previous season, I like seeing the friendship between Dustin and Steve grow and develop, how they play off of each other and how they're insulting each other and giving each other tips for different things. A character that's introduced is Robin. She works with Steve in the ice cream joint, whatever that they're working at the time, and she's a fun character. She has a very kind of sarcastic demeanor, which I like because I'm a very sarcastic person as well. And she plays an important role in decoding the Russian message and helping the plot move along. There's even a Russian military guy called Grigory, and when he was introduced, I thought he was like literally a Russian Terminator because he's just so kind of robotic and he just seems to move like Arnold Schwarzenegger and has like no emotions and is super strong for some reason. And finally, Murray from season 1 and 2 gets more screen time, the eccentric, crazy kind of guy that was introduced earlier, and a new character called Alexei, who is a Russian scientist, is also introduced. They have a fun dynamic as well, because Murray has to interpret for Alexei because he can't speak English, and the things that they say is often very hilarious.
Я сказал, что им надо заняться сексом.
У них что, секса не было?
Да.
Eleven uses her telekinetic powers a lot more often in this season. It's always fun to watch her lift things up and throw them around and mess with people using her telekinetic powers. And any fight scene that involved that Russian Terminator Grigory was always fun to watch. He just seems kind of indestructible. I thought he was literally superhuman somehow when he was first introduced because he manages to pick up a grown man with one hand, so he must have some kind of superhuman strength, and he keeps taking hits and none of it seems to really bother him. He just keeps powering on. Lots of cool soundtracks from the 80s is played throughout the show, which will probably hit a lot of nostalgia buttons for a lot of other people. Like season 1 and 2, the music is composed by the electronic band Survive. It has that kind of electronic sci-fi kind of feel that you get from a lot of movies, science fiction movies rather, from the 80s. It captures that feel perfectly. Even just listening to the intro, it just captures sci-fi 80s perfectly to me. And we also get a surprise rendition of the Never-Ending theme song, and that's never a bad thing, I guess. I like the design of the Mind Flayer and how it kind of manifests itself in the real world as opposed to the Upside Down. It like takes control of other beings, and then when he's done with them, he or she, I should rather say, is done with them, it just kind of makes them explode into some kind of gooey ooze and then absorbs it, and that's how it makes its body, which is a really cool concept. But in saying that, the CGI for it is not always convincing and does take me out of the show just a little bit. Like, it's a TV show. I know they don't have the same kind of budget as a movie and they have to stretch it over a longer period of time, but it does take me out of the TV show a bit when the CGI is not very convincing, although it does look cool in most scenes. Honestly, I think they could have pulled off some really good practical effects with the Mind Flayer, with how it looks. They could have gone with some kind of gooey, oozy looking tentacles or something that you will probably see out of the Thing. If they had something like that, it would improve a lot, but I understand most likely budgetary constraints and lots of other factors just made CGI that much easier. This season, I feel, is a improvement over the second season, mostly to do with pace, because with season 2, it took a little while for it to get going with the plot. This one, it pretty much dives into it straight away. The stakes also feel a lot higher. It feels like this is like a end of humanity kind of event. The Mind Flayer actually seems like an entity that would be able to pretty much end humanity, as opposed to the Demigorgon and the Demidogs from the previous season. It didn't really feel like they were like that big of a threat. So the stakes were certainly higher in this season. More characters are introduced. Our characters that we already know and love are fleshed out, and they're growing as characters, and that's what you want from a sequel. You want your characters to grow as the show goes. It's great to see all these characters grow and develop as the series goes. I enjoyed all the new characters they introduced. There was a lot of fun action. I like the idea of the Mind Flayer and how it manifests itself in reality. Pacing feels a lot better. The stakes feel higher, and the music fits the tone and like the mood and the setting of the TV show perfectly. Honestly, there wasn't that much that I didn't like about this season. Pretty much the special effects took me out of the show a little bit, but that's not really a big gripe. I understand why that could happen in this show. And another thing is that there's a certain plot point in the show. Has to do with rats and people eating chemicals and that kind of thing, because the Mind Flayer is making them, and I don't think they actually really went anywhere with that. I think they just kind of dropped it, and yeah, I just don't think it really went anywhere and was kind of pointless. If I'm wrong about that, please comment below and let me know why the people and the rats were eating chemicals. I might have missed it, I'm not sure. If you love 1980s themed sci-fi, then you will definitely love this show. It captures the time period perfectly, it's interesting, it has fun characters. Honestly, I think most people will love this show. Well, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're new to my channel, I cover these kind of TV shows and movies quite a lot. I talk about sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, and monsters quite a lot in this channel. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. And as always, thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me ramble on about a TV show for a few minutes. Thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.